Okay, good morning and welcome to the August 21st, 2025 Division of Adult Education monthly webinar. This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted to the PAIR website probably next week or the beginning of September. As I stated earlier, Pennsylvania is a two-party consent state. We do not give consent for any additional recording of this webinar. So I have kind of several updates, topics to cover with you, and then I will be turning it over to Lori Como and Cheryl Heister, who are going to talk to you about fee-for-service opportunities. We had a session on this on the second day of the kickoff back in July, and we know a lot of people were not able to attend that in person, so we asked Lori to kind of do a portion, a condensed version of her session, and then we also asked Cheryl Heister to talk about her experiences as well. So for the timeline of so our goal when we originally had you submit the grants in early June, our goal had been to get the grants reviewed and approved to the extent possible in June and July, so that as soon as that they would be done before the FERs were due, because we realized that in the past couple of years, those two approval processes, review and approval processes, have overlapped, which can be a little confusing, not only for you, but for us as well. Unfortunately, because of what happened with the federal funding, we weren't able to do that. So right now we are prioritizing reviewing the 25-26 grants. There are two reasons for that. One, we are targeting opening e-data the week of Labor Day. So the IT folks here in the Commonwealth are making the changes that are necessary. We're hoping that the MIS guys will be able to test next week, and that everything will be working and that we'll be able to open the following week. But in any case, we're getting close, and we would like as many people as many agencies as possible to be able to start entering your data when eData opens. So, and you can't do that until your grant has been approved by our office. So it has to be through the eData approved step. The other thing we're trying to do is make sure the grants are as far along in the grant approval process so that the funds can be paid out as soon as possible after the budget passes. Now, I do have to say I wrote as soon as possible, not ASAP, because ASAP tends to have it's going to happen immediately, whereas writing out as soon as possible is just like there are several steps that have to take place within the Office of the Budget and Office of Treasury and Comptroller's Office, et cetera. So there are a lot of things that have to happen after a budget passes before the grants can actually get paid. But we would like to at least be done with our approval process so that we aren't the reason your grants are being held up. That means you'll need to work with us to make sure that you respond to your advisors, you make the changes that they're requesting when I return the grant, or if I return the grant to you for changes, that you make those right away. Contact your advisor when you're done making those changes for review and then get them resubmitted. We will be dealing with FERs after that. I do want to say thank you. All of the FERs have been submitted. I believe that is a record, at least for the last several years. So thank you all. They are sitting with us. We have them. And when most of when the grants are as far along as we can get them, then we'll turn and look at the FERs. I do want to say for those of you that owe us funds, please do not send checks for funds owed to us until we tell you to. We've had cases where agencies sent us checks and then there were errors in the FER, and so the check was not for the correct amount. So it's the timeline. One thing I do want to say about the 2025 grants. So Back in July, when I contacted you about the fact that there had been a hold put on the federal funds, I encouraged you to stay the course until we knew what was happening. Many of you did, many of you did not, and made staffing decisions, including eliminating positions and laying people off. You are now getting the full amount that you were originally to get, which means our expectation is that you will provide the services that you were originally going to provide. So this was not a chance to get rid of staff so that you can put more money into rent or admin or things like that. Okay, so I realized July was stressful. I realized it was challenging. I realized you have higher ups that probably imposed decisions on you that I would not have advised, but I, of course, am not in position to prevent you from doing. But you are now getting your full funding. And so you need to figure out how to provide the services and make sure that the direct services are happening and that they are not negatively impacted by redistribution of funds to non-direct services. Okay. This is mostly a reminder. It has come up as we've been monitoring programs. At the beginning of the year, when you submit a budget, you have to spread staff salary out across, if you have the 064 grant, it's across the federal and state budgets. If you have multiple grants, you have staff that are spread out across multiple of our grants. If you have other funding sources, they're spread out even more. And we have lots of function codes that you have to spread your staff time out on. So we recognize that at the beginning of the year, you sit down and you budget based on what you anticipate staff will be doing over the course of the year. And also aligned with our requirements for, professional development time, preparation time, etc. That's obviously you have to do that. That's part of grant budgeting. What you charge to our grants over the course of the year cannot be based 100% on what you've budgeted. Okay, so you have to have a system that allows you to accurately and properly allocate staff time to the various budgets and to the various function codes, and to assure that the activities that you are charging for are allowable. So, what I'm saying is maybe you budget a certain amount of time for a staff member to be the in-house professional development specialist. And then there's another staff member who focuses on data quality. But then the person who's the in-house professional development specialist leaves, and the person who's doing data quality now also is doing the in-house professional development specialist work. Well, what you pay that person, their time working on activities will now have to be revised if that person, if it's for 1 or 2 weeks, then it's not that big of a deal, right? So somebody goes on vacation and somebody steps up and leads the PLC instead of the in-house. That's not, you don't have to worry about that too much. But if somebody is taking on a new role that falls under a new function code, you're going to have to adjust that somehow so that what you report to us as part of your quarterly reports and the FERs reflects actual staff activity. So that's, this slide is showing you federal code that reflects why we make you do this. That is, focused a lot on federal versus state versus other funds, but we also have to report on how funds are used, related to support services and transition and instruction. We have statutory requirements. So we need you to be sure that what you're reporting to us is in fact reflective of what staff are actually doing, not just what they were budgeted to do. And if you have any staff members who are not on our grant or are not fully on our grant, but you're using their time as local match on our grants, they also have to be documented. And you have to be able to document that they actually spent time doing activities that are directly related to our grant and would be allowable under our grant and could have been allocated to our grants. So you have to have some kind of documentation for that. Just a reminder that you need to look at your processes to make sure that, if we come and say, how did you determine that you paid this person this much in the function codes, that you have documentation to back that up. It will look different for different programs. DiplomaSender update. This is related to online proctoring, both for the GED and HiSET. There have been cases of fraud. We have found individuals who have entered fake Pennsylvania addresses, or they've put their personal address in, but then just selected Pennsylvania as the state instead of their actual state in order to take advantage of online proctoring and the Pennsylvania subsidy. We're not the only state that has happened to. And so DiplomaSender has added a residency validation before they will issue the transcript and diploma to someone after the person has passed the test, if they used online proctoring. So this will not impact students who are taking the test at a testing site, right? Because testing sites are expected to verify the student's identity and residency when they give them the test. So when the student comes, when the test taker arrives to take the test. But with online proctoring, the company that both HiSET and GED testing use, the online proctors only verify identity. They will not identify residency. And apparently neither the HiSET nor the GED testing service systems prevent people from falsely selecting Pennsylvania as a state when it doesn't match the address. So starting August 1st, when somebody passes the test, and they should be able to get the credential, if they pass the test using online proctoring, DiplomaSender will require them to upload some kind of documentation to show to verify their Pennsylvania address. The state driver's license, ID, utility bill, credit card statement, pay stub from the last 3 months with name and address. They check it every couple hours, so it is fairly fast as long as the individual goes ahead and uploads the information. If there's something that is not sufficient about it, they'll let the help desk folks know, so that if the person contacts, they can find out what else they need to do. So I know that some of you, especially those of you in rural areas, you have students kind of sign up for online proctoring, and then they come to your site and they do you're not a testing center, but you have labs where students can do online proctoring. We know it's legitimate. We know that they're valid. And so just letting you know that you'll have students who are going to have to do this extra step before they can request their transcript and diploma. Okay. If they mix online and in-person testing, will they need to do the extra step? I believe if the last test, if the final test that allows them to pass is an online proctoring, then yes, they will need to do it. Okay. I'm going to try and get through this part fairly quickly, but I did want to explain it, since I had touched on this in the my introduction at the kickoff. So this first slide is mostly a reminder. It's a quick review of the 6 federal performance indicators, and these are the common indicators, so that these indicators apply to all 6 of the programs under WIOA. So Title I, Adult Dislocated Worker, Youth, Title II, Adult Education, Title III, Wagner-Peiser, and Title IV, OVR, Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. The 6 performance indicators are measurable skill gain, employment in second and fourth quarters after exit, median wage of those employed in the second quarter after exit, credential attainment, which includes both secondary and post-secondary credential, and effectiveness in serving employers, which after an extended pilot period, the federal offices have defined as individuals retained at the same employer from the second to the fourth quarter after exit. The targets, so each core program has its own unique targets for each of those core outcomes, except for the employer effectiveness. Employer effectiveness, we report as a state. It's a single report, and L&I actually handles that. And that's new. This is the first time we'll be reporting on that as a full state. But for the other 5 performance indicators, Title II, we establish targets as part of the state plan development, and then as part of the state plan modification. So every 2 years, we propose targets as part of submitting the state plan and the state plan modification. Then in our case, Octay comes back to us and says, yeah, we think those are good, or no, we don't think those are good, and here's what you're going to do. That's called negotiating. When Octay reviews our proposal and kind of decides whether or not they're going to accept ours or recommend require a different one, they use several criteria to determine what they believe are appropriate targets. And it's for each state. So, it's not like all of the states have the same MSG. Each state has its own targets for each of those 5. So, but they do kind of compare the levels with other states' levels. So how are we in the quartiles across the nation? There is use of a statistical adjustment model, the extent to which the levels promote continuous improvement, and the extent to which the levels assist the U.S. Department of Education in meeting its Government Performance and Results Act performance goals. As part of the 24 to 28 WIOA state plan, Octay approved the following targets for program year 2024 for Pennsylvania. So these would be the targets that we need to meet when we in our reporting that we have to submit for October 1st of this year. So our measurable skill gain target is 37%. Our employment in the second quarter after exit is 47.5%. Our employment in the fourth quarter after exit is 50%, median earnings just under 7,000, and credential attainment is 27%. As a reminder, the employment-based outcomes include, as a general reminder, the employment and the credential attainment outcomes are exit-based, which means we look at students who have exited the program. The MSG is for all students. And periods of participation count. So if you have a student who has 2 periods of participation and they exited both of them, we will have to include them in the cohort for employment second quarter for all of these exit-based outcomes for both periods of participation. And employment includes all exited individuals, whether they have a Social Security number or not, and whether they're in the labor force or not. I won't go into a lot of detail about the statistical adjustment model because it is very statistical and I am not a statistician. But I did mention that they use a statistical adjustment model. So the model uses a statistical method to develop a numeric adjustment for performance. So the model accounts for the impact of characteristics of the participants we serve, and that includes both the demographic characteristics and the barriers to employment. The model also accounts for the economic conditions in the state. So, for example, if we end up serving many more low-level students than we had previously served when we established an MSG target, the statistical model might actually adjust our target downwards a little bit. Conversely, if our number of higher level students is higher than anticipated, our target may be adjusted upwards. The model is used by both the U.S. Departments of Education and Labor. Once the model was built, the departments had to kind of inform it with actual data from each of our core programs. So they had this model, and then in order for it to really truly be able to be used in a valid way, so that if they were sanctioning states, they could stand behind their statistical adjustment model, they had to load it with actual data for Title II for several years. However, the data that Title II submits, so we submit as a state, we submit annual data and it's aggregate. Titles 1, 3, and 4 submit individual participant level data and they submit it quarterly. Therefore, labor has had 4 times as much data to inform its models and ensure the accuracy of the model. So as a result, Titles 1, 3, and 4 have been held accountable for their data and for their outcomes for several years now. Title 2, adult education, has not been held accountable until now. So what that means is while we do annual reporting, so we reported our measurable skill gain, employment outcomes, credential attainment, we reported those outcomes. There were no consequences when we did not meet our target outcomes. Okay, so that's what has been up until now. In July, Octay informed state directors of adult education that they will be conducting formal performance assessment for 2 outcomes for Title II, measurable skill gains and employment in the second quarter after exit. In addition, they will assess the overall state indicator score for measurable skill gain and employment in the second quarter after exit. So what does this mean? It means that Octay will compare our actual performance on measurable skill gain and employment in the second quarter after exit with our targets as adjusted by the statistical adjustment model. And then they will average our performance on MSG and employment with the other core programs' performance in those 2 outcomes to see what kind of the state average is. The right notes. Okay, what does it mean to meet the target? So for each individual indicator, so for measurable skill gain and for employment in the second quarter, our actual performance must be at least 50% of the adjusted target. So for example, let's say our target for this year was 37%, but when they apply the statistical adjustment model, maybe it gets adjusted up to 40%. So now they're saying, okay, we negotiated 37%, but when we apply the statistical adjustment model, looking at who you actually served, their demographics, the economic situation, et cetera, we think actually based on who you're serving, your MSG should really be 40%. And then let's say our actual performance is 35%. So it's what percentage is 35 of 40? It's 87.5%. So for that particular target, we'll say we actually met it. So we're good there. Okay. Then they take our MSG performance. So not the 37% or the 35% or 37%, but that we were at 87.5% of our target. They then take those performance indicators from all, in this case, MSG is from 5 of the programs. Wagner Pizer does not have MSG. This is an example. So let's say we were at 87.5% for MSG. And these are made up numbers. So then they said, okay, Title I adults, MSG indicator score 72. We averaged those all together, and the average was 89.76%. But the requirement is the average to be at least 90% of what was expected across the board. And in this case, Pennsylvania across the board would be considered to have failed that indicator score. So I don't expect you to be experts on that. That's just to kind of explain what we're confronting really for the very first time. What if we don't meet targets? So the first year that you fail to meet a target, and it can be any of the targets, we have to participate in technical assistance, and we have to develop and implement a performance improvement plan as a state. That performance improvement plan will, of course, involve things that you will have to do since you're the ones actually providing the services. So I haven't experienced that yet because we haven't had to, because we haven't been held accountable. We'll see what happens. If the state fails to meet the same target a second year in a row, there is a financial sanction. The financial sanction is a 5% cut in the governor's reserve allotment. And that 5% cut continues annually until the state meets the target. So for example, if we do not meet our measurable skill gain target, if we don't hit the 50% this year, and then we don't hit it again next year, there will be a 5% cut in the governor's reserve allotment. You're like, what is that? Okay, that is a portion of Title I funds which can be used for statewide employment and training activities. So it wouldn't directly probably impact adult ed programs, but we would be responsible for other entities not getting funding. So we don't want to do that, right? And the governor's reserve funds have been used for things such as the digital literacy grants that LNI has put out to provide digital literacy classes. So it could indirectly impact us. So that's just a very somewhat brief explanation of what the targets are and how they look at it. Again, I don't expect you to fully understand it. I'm still processing all of it, but I do need you to understand that, like, moving forward, like, we didn't know about this for 24-25. They kind of sprung it on us in July, but kind of moving forward, we really need to recognize that we're now being held accountable for things. And we need to work hard to make sure we're meeting our targets. Okay, I have now taken a full half an hour, so I guess if you have any questions, we can deal with those at the end. I am going to mute myself, and I'm going to let Lori Como take over so she can talk about fee-for-service activities.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Amanda. And hi, everyone. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about building employee training services as we do it here at Literacy Pittsburgh, or fee-for-service programming. It's something that we've done for a number of years that goes all the way back to the days of when there were PA WIN grants that supported this type of work. But I'm sure some of you also get inquiries from local employers or other people about doing free classes and when to look at them as something that might be fee for service or earned income for your agency. Next slide, please. So the why, who, how, and different goals. Here at Literacy Pittsburgh, as I said, we've done this for quite a while. We do get a lot of inquiries for customized training versus regular general free services. For example, we got somebody calling and they have some Spanish speaking individuals and they want to enroll them. It's a construction company and they want to enroll them in our free services because they need them to speak better on the job site. And this is an opportunity for us to say, yes, ESL is an area of expertise that we have, and we're happy that they're calling us to be part of the solution for their workforce. However, our classes are more generalized English, or if they're meeting with a tutor, it's not necessarily customized for the specific language skills that they want those employees to learn and do better to improve their business or their safety. So that's an opportunity for us to talk to them about a fee-for-service project. We have done a lot of work to raise our profile in this area because we are trying to connect to employers and we want them to see us as more than just a remediation program, but something that we can also help the employers to upskill their workforce and provide a pathway for our students. One of the things that you need to consider is, do you have the capacity to do this? And here at our agency, we do have a small team where we can work on this together to create some curriculum and then follow up with the assessment and do different things. And myself and one of my directors also are the ones who are doing the sales and the consults with these. Over the years, we've done a few of these and they were getting more popular. So we were able to set a revenue goal for ourselves as to how many of these we can do, what the actual costs are, and building that out. So although we are a large agency, our goal for fee for service has been about $60,000 for the past couple of years. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we price that out. And through the presentation, I'm hoping that we can connect and share other types of experiences that you have. And Cheryl's going to follow up with what she does at her agency. But at the end, my contact information is there, and I'm happy to talk to you all about that as well, because we're also learning as we go. Next slide. Thank you. So some of the types of employer engagements that we've done over the years: English for the workplace, super popular as people they see that our immigrant and refugee students are really good workers and they want to keep or retain them and promote them. So that's been really popular. Lately, we've been getting a lot of requests for digital skills. How do we help the employees navigate things? Just because they can use their phone doesn't mean that they can send good emails or understand professional digital skills etiquette, or they might need things like Word or Excel. Professional communication does tie in with digital skills. We're getting lots of requests for people to help with email, even like the trades. They say that they need the workers in the unions or the apprenticeship programs to be able to send and receive professional communication and know how to use those. We've also gotten requests to provide professional development for staff who work with English language learners, whether it's the CareerLink wanting cross-cultural communication, other community colleges and other social service providers want us to provide some professional development about working with English language learners. And we've developed some cross-cultural communication trainings and supervisor trainings about how to interact and work with a diverse workforce where you have newcomers from other countries, and what does that mean and how do you welcome them and be engaging so that there is less employee turnover. So those are the types of things that we've become more expert at. And you can see that the different types of clients that we've had, that this spells them out a little bit more, along with the types of engagement that we've done for them. It's gone down to even at the city level and a university where we've done customized one-on-one training for some of the staff, up to cross-cultural communication delivered virtually for a staff of 60 in various locations. The workforce trainings that we've done are usually in person, but we have been able to develop online ones to serve another branch of a hospital system in another part of the state. So, that took more coordination, and probably don't have the time today to get into some of that, but we can talk offline about those types of situations as well. Next slide. So when you're building an employee training type of program, you want to think about your experience in working with customized training or fee for service. A lot of times you'll get that inquiry where people are asking you again about a free service, or can you provide training about this topic or on this type of situation that they're having. You have to look and see, do you have what they need? Do you have expertise in that? Can you say that you can teach those skills that they're looking for? And do you have somebody on staff who can customize or create the content that you'll need? Another selling point is that you have expertise in adult learning. And even if you might not have as much of a track record in a fee-for-service situation, what is your track record in delivering services to adults in your area? Can you speak to measurable skill gains of different kinds, helping people to get employed or stay employed? How can you get educational functioning level gains? Those are the things that are impressive to the partners who are looking for your services. And then you can say that this is how you can provide a return on investment for the agency or the employer who's looking to engage with you. Because if you can get them to retain an employee, it costs a lot less than them having to go out, hire a new one, and then train them. Next slide. So the building blocks of employee training, it takes a while. It's not something that you can flip the switch. Usually when we get an inquiry for something like this, we tell them the soonest we probably can start a class is 6 weeks to 2 months, because there's a lot that goes into a program. And we talk about that with the inquiry, and then we set up an official consultation where we listen to them and hear the types of things that they're having a pain point with, or a pressure point that we can help to solve the problem. We listen to that, and then we write up a formal proposal as to what we're proposing, which is the initial foray into the conversation, and we give some ideas around pricing. We then go out and do a site visit where we observe the behaviors or the situations in which the employees are engaging, and they would like to have us help improve the language or the skills that the employees are doing. And for this, because usually our engagements are short, I'll tell you they're about 15 hours is our standard first class. We develop a customized assessment based on the vocabulary or the goals that they want us to work on. And then we develop some curriculum. We provide weekly updates once we're engaged with the team. So we're telling the supervisors what we've covered with the students, so that they can try to reinforce that between classes. We do a post assessment, and we follow up with reporting and debriefing. One of the things that we do require is that this is on company time if we're doing fee for service, because we've found that it doesn't work if we don't. So it's on paid time for the employees, and we're not going to be giving them, we'll give general information about testing. So they're like employee ABC, and based on the number of sessions they've come and that type of matrix, and we'll do the pre and post assessment score. So it's not used as a punitive thing for any of the staff. So the strategies we use, make that first connection. Sometimes we're doing outreach. Sometimes we're getting a warm introduction. We go to events, or we're handling inquiries. We really look, as we're talking with the employer, about shared goals and alignment. Who's involved? Trying to get the supervisors to have buy-in to us doing this. Do the employees want it? As well as the higher ups. Who's that decision maker in the organization who's going to pay for this? We try to build trust and define the roles, what we can do and what we can't do, so that we're all on the same page. We make sure we're checking in. We have shared wins that we're talking about. So we might find out that something unanticipated comes up, and we might have been able to solve a problem they didn't know they had. One of those situations was For example, one of the hospitals we were working with said the employees from this country are very shy. They're not talking. Every time they're in team meetings, the employees are standing there looking down. They're not making eye contact, etc., not engaging with the supervisor. We come to tell them, like, that's a cultural difference in their culture. That means they're showing trust and respect. Meanwhile, the American born supervisor doesn't know that and is thinking that they're not being engaged. So that was one thing that helped to change some perceptions. But the employees were also just shy. It's part of their culture. So once they started engaging with us and talking about American workforce standards, et cetera, the supervisor then wrote to the curriculum developer and said jokingly, can you get them to stop sending me emails now? Because they were so engaged and they knew it was something that was expected. They opened up and their language skills were, he found, much better than he thought they were. So we just were able to keep talking about that, and it helped to really foster a really good relationship with that hospital. We also talk about what other wins they're seeing. They might see that for this hospital, their patient satisfaction scores were going up because the employees that we were working with, the environmental services or the cleaners who come into the rooms, were having more conversations with the patients and things like that. So when the patients filled out their scores, they were giving higher ratings for different things that really helped that department to show that they were really doing a good job. And then we also ask, can we share these stories? If we're doing something, we ask if we can co-market what we're doing or give them a shout out, and that really works. We really look at ways that we can measure and communicate that success. What is the return on investment that the employer is most interested in? Is it something like that we're always looking to think about how we can build on the relationship that we have and what the next class might be. So we had a really good experience with this hospital. We ended up doing a second level of the class because the employees felt that the hospital really cared about them and their work career path. And then we also ended up doing some digital skills for all of the staff, not just the foreign-born staff. So they really saw that this was working and helping to keep the staff engaged, which led to more employee training contracts for us. And don't be shy about asking for that next cohort. Next slide, please. Pricing is something that you might think about, and we actually struggled with it too. I think we work in nonprofit and we undervalue what we provide. We're so used to providing free services for our students, and you start to look at what other people charge, and then you can see really how valuable the service that we have is. For example, somebody just told us for a professional development training, they want $2,000 for an hour service of something they deliver all the time. So that just puts it in, some context for you as to what other people charge for this type of service. As you're starting out, you might want to offer something as you're building your reputation at a different price. Or if you're working with a nonprofit or a really small company, you might not charge as much as another one because, again, you're building that, you understand where they're coming from. But a lot of times what I'll do up front is ask them, do you have a budget for this? What is your budget? And then figure out how we can work within that. But it's really important to sit down and consider your costs. How much is it going to cost you to do this? And there are a lot of costs that don't go into that, the teacher on site for this amount of time. What does that really involve? It's their teaching time, their prep time, their travel time. But then all of those other costs that you might not consider, like your own time if you're the administrator, how much time does it cost to create and do a customized assessment? A lot of times we have several staff helping with the customized assessment in delivering that and doing that as part of the class, reporting and all of those things. So don't undervalue your services. Those are some of the things that we really take into account. And I'm happy to talk to you offline about how we came up with some of those and what we charge. But really look at what is your real cost for this and seeing, that you want to at least cover your costs or hopefully make a little bit of profit is what you're trying to do in the end to diversify your funding streams. And make sure you're creating collateral as you go. We came up with some templates for our proposals that look nice and professional, and then we can reuse those. If you're going to advertise, how are you doing that? And what is the return on investment that you want to talk about, why it's important to them? It's also important to survey students and supervisors and ask if you can use their quotes when you're trying to promote your expertise or your services in this area. It's something we didn't do the first couple of times around, and then we had to go back and ask, are you willing to provide a quote for that? And we do ask if we can publicize these on our social media to spread the word about what we're doing and with our workforce connections. So we talk about it all the time, even with the partners in the workforce system, they might not realize that you can do this type of work, not just the things that are under our Title II contracts that they might be most used to seeing. So next slide, please. And at Literacy Pittsburgh, I'm giving you some of the links that we have. We've built out an employee training services webpage. It's a landing page for that. Not enough time today, but we have a 2-minute video that we created in conjunction with that one hospital, where they talked about how important it was for this program and what it did for them. So you can click on our YouTube channel and look at that video. And then we even pay for, like, in some of the professional publications, we'll run a story and put some things out in the media to, again, cultivate new inquiries, so that we can talk to employers about what we do. And one of the things that's really important about doing that as well is, as you're connecting with the employer and you might do this fee for service for them, it's another way to build a relationship for career pathways for your students. So all of these employers are coming in, or we're asking them, if you're hiring, will you consider our students who are looking for employment? And they know us and they now trust us. So it helps to elevate our students when they're looking at the hiring process with that partner company. So it's really good to build these relationships for a number of reasons. And then we also have a career pathways landing page on our webpage that is really asking employers that as well. Like, are you willing to work with us to either train or hire our students? And it's another way to get them to talk to us first about that, as one way to get into talking about employee training. And then we can talk more about how we can also do fee for service for them to upskill both their workers and their supervisors. And then my last slide is just that these partnerships help to drive investment and interest and our impact. So we've really seen that even though the amount of money that we're earning isn't great, it has forged relationships that really has helped to amplify the work that we're doing as being a really relevant part of the workforce development system in our region. And just, you don't have to go it alone. Let's collaborate, and you can get a lot of different outcomes from that. And if you want to talk more about it, please reach out, and we can share ideas. And I'm happy to offer any advice from the work that we've done, answer questions, and also learn from you as well. Any questions?
There aren't any questions in the chat, but there's something that says happy birthday. So if it's your birthday, happy birthday.
Yes, my birthday today. So nice to spend part of it with all of you. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Thank you for presenting on our webinar.
Thanks.
Okay. Cheryl?
Hi, everybody. Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
Hi. Yeah, thanks, Lori. That was great. I think Literacy Pittsburgh has such a strong program. And I come to you today just to talk about what are the considerations for a small adult education program like the Literacy and Learning Success Centers. Because I think that when, faced with, difficult kind of a difficult financial landscape, or it's tempting to think that this can generate revenue and really help. But there's a lot of things to consider because it isn't free money. There's a lot of work that has to go into making these programs successful, and they, can potentially, ding your reputation if you haven't really gone through a lot of steps. And I think the first step from, my perspective in a small agency is just thinking about the strategic factors that impact our decision whether or not we're going to, enter a fee-for-service contract with an employer or another entity. And it's, one is, of course, mission alignment. What will we do? What won't we do? I think another thing that became really important for us over time is we only want to be involved in a project that is interested in inclusionary practices. We don't, want to work with a company that's looking to, find ways of, getting rid of employees who are not performing at the level that the employer hopes for. And Lori mentioned that in talking about, their approach as well, that it can't be a punitive project. Also, we just really need to understand the local market, what the market will bear in terms of, what you can actually charge that makes your services attainable. There are other organizations like we work, hand in hand with IU13, another large adult education organization who has a strong fee-for-service program. So we really work collaboratively to figure out, hey, is this a good project for us to do? And then, Lori also mentioned, are we talking to the right people at the company? Because sometimes, you're talking to folks who are excited about a project and really want to move forward on it, and you kind of go, up to your knees in the project, and then you later learn that there wasn't the support that was needed at a higher level in the company to approve the expenditure. Lori also talked about pricing strategy, and covering your costs, and that can be really challenging, especially when you're starting out new and you really want to get that first project going. Capacity is obviously an issue, quality, and then making sure that you have the capacity to follow through. So next slide, please. So I think it's also, you could see from what's happening in Literacy Pittsburgh that there is an active marketing strategy. For us, we do not market these services. We respond when approached, and I think that makes sense for us and a lot of small agencies. And we also get approached and don't say yes, because it just doesn't make sense. We also have had, similar circumstances where we've let employers try it before they buy it. Or we even had a really interesting partnership with the Lancaster County Commissioners and, working to help them make their announcements that were sent out to homeowners in the county around home reassessment accessible, like written in accessible language. And that was a fun project. And I think in the future, there may be opportunities to have fee for service as part of that. Next slide, please. And then other considerations, again, it's running a pilot and getting feedback. If you're brand new to this, I would, encourage you to just give it away and run it as a pilot and really learn from it and manage your expectations. I think if you're doing a 15-hour English class, I think it's really important that you're very clear about what you can actually accomplish in that time. So be clear about your deliverables, get something in writing, and make sure that you are accessible. And then be sure to measure that impact and the satisfaction. Like Lori said, get those testimonials and references. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, both Cheryl and Lori, very much. Does anybody have any questions? That is our last slide. So if you had any questions from my content or for Lori or Cheryl. Okay. Looks like we do not have any questions. So thank you all very much for joining us today. Again, thank you all for all your hard work, and we'll talk to you next month. Bye-bye.